Hi, welcome to another episode of Profit Partners. I am David from Better Refunds. I am here with Elizabeth from Junglr. Hopefully I said that right.
Hello. You
Right,
did.
Junglr?
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
it.
Awesome. All right, I have one question for you, and that
Yes.
is, how are you doing?
I am doing good. I'm doing good. I
That's good.
am. Yeah.
That's really, really good. So you basically, Junglr is was started, if I remember correctly, it was started by you.
hmm
Can you give like a brief history of how Junglr got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is back in the day. I really should update it. I keep saying like I think it's about 6 years ago. Honestly, I get like the notification from LinkedIn, you've been part of Junglr for X long. And I was like, okay, that's how long it is. Lose track of time. But back in the day, we were looking for some way to make money from home, as we all are. And so that led us into a whole bunch of stuff, print on demand, Etsy, all these kind of things, which of course, Amazon being a big part of that. Hey, everybody's selling on Amazon. So people are doing retail arbitrage. I feel like that's kind of a gateway thing. So, going to stores, scanning things, what can we sell on Amazon? And then that was like, well, this is a lot to keep up with. And so private label. So went through who was it? Jungle Scout had a really good like step-by-step stuff on YouTube. So like watching all the things, I think we can do this, right? Talking to the suppliers, getting those things rolling. And so that was good. We were not, I told everyone, we did not start it the way you really should start a business, which is like, I'm starting a business. I'm being professional about this. I'm gonna like track everything. I'm gonna really put together a business plan. It was like, hey, let's try it. Right. And so we did. Honestly, we might have lost money. If we were good, we broke even probably. And then somewhere in the mess of that, and honestly, at this point, the years are blurring. I got pregnant with twins, which was a little bit rough. Double the babies, double the morning sickness. And
Right.
so if we ate and read a book, it was a good day. And so obviously selling on Amazon, we all know what goes into that, even more so these days. So that went down. So after the dust settled a little bit and I was like, all right, I feel like I can breathe. Honestly, that first year, I don't even remember half of it. We survived. And then started like, all right, let's get back into this, right? And so through selling on Amazon, we had gone into the world of obviously like advertising. Never considered myself really a data nerd. I barely knew how to open up a spreadsheet at that point. I figured out what a filter was in a spreadsheet, and that blew my mind. Like, tells you what level I was at, but I could read it and I was good at it. And for context, for anyone listening, the conversations these days I'm having is, hey, how do you launch a product using ads? How do you run ads? You very rarely, although on occasionally I get the question, do I need to run ads? Whereas the conversation, 6, 7 years ago was, hey, do I need to run ads? And if so, how do I do it? For anyone who's been in the game for any length of time, that was around the time when Amazon split out the targeting types in the auto campaigns and blew everyone's minds. And like so many updates, so many like other options and things later. I mean, it's rapidly accelerating. But so there was less complication to running ads, but there were still a lot of people asking questions. And I was like, hey, I know the answer to that question. Let me answer that for you. And so that's back when also like a lot of the Facebook groups are really popping. So a lot of active Facebook groups. I think a lot of the audience has moved to either private groups or LinkedIn at these days. But yeah, so just started out answering people's questions, trying to be helpful. And someone was like, hey, do you do this? And I was like, kind of. And so was able to get some really good results. There's been a lot of learning curves along the way. A lot of my philosophies and how we look at things was really built through the school of hard knocks. And so my hope, with getting on podcasts like this or sharing any of the content, I'm like, hey, this is what I learned. This is the pain I went through. Like, let me let you know about these weird little quirks that you wouldn't know if you weren't running it yourself, and try and cut down the learning curve. And so that's really been our evolution as an agency, is constantly learning and updating with the platform, and then just trying to share our knowledge. Like, our marketing strategy continues to be, and I don't see that ever changing. Try and be helpful as much as possible, and that seems to play off in dividends.
So you basically got into, I guess Amazon ads almost by accident. Like,
Yeah.
you were just basically trying to, survive on selling on Amazon, and then realized that there was actually a lot of potential in the Amazon ads world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, when you started, were there like a lot of competitors? Because I mean, now there's like probably thousands of companies that deal with Amazon ads. And mind you, they could be doing it on different scales or
Yeah.
be focusing on certain things here and there. When you started, how many were really prevalent?
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure, but I know there wasn't as many these days as there are now. And there wasn't as many sort of freelancers and people. I still feel like I could, like we have enough knowledge, we have enough skill. I feel like I have enough to speak to in the industry that if I was starting from scratch, at least, with the knowledge base I have now, I still think you can make it. It is more saturated these days, I will say. It's a lot harder to make your name for yourself. Absolutely can. Again, providing that you have a strong opinion and you have something to say that is helpful to others, I still think you can make it in most any saturated market. It's just how difficult is it to get that knowledge out to people who, kind of need and can benefit from it. If there's more voices in the space, it's a little bit harder to do that.
Right. So when it comes to Amazon ads, I'm gonna be Frank for a minute
Yeah.
and not David. So I apologize. But I actually had a podcast with someone who did do ads in the past, and I regret not really asking this question.
Go for it.
What exactly is ads on Amazon? Like, I kind of get it, but I honestly don't. Because like,
Yeah.
all right, I mean, I'm gonna leave it there because I'm gonna embarrass myself
I
otherwise.
like it. I like that question because, to be honest, I think myself included, you get so stuck in the data and this and click-through rates and conversion rates, and like you're so in it. But I think honestly, if sellers, advertisers, brands could kind of take a step back and say, like, what are we actually like doing? What's the goal here, right? So really what Amazon ads are is getting your product in front of shoppers as they're browsing the platform. If we're talking strictly ad console on platform ads, that's what we're trying to do. And so I mean, you can differentiate it with, kind of like what match types are we targeting? We could talk about campaign setup. We can talk about, what is click-through rates and conversion rates and how do all these little pieces and things fit into, because those are important. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're building out a campaign, we're putting targets in it, and we're saying, this is where I want to show up on the platform. And the interesting thing about Amazon advertising is Amazon, I mean, again, we're talking on platform ads. We're not talking like off platform, driving traffic to Amazon. We're talking like strictly Amazon ads. What you're really doing is looking to harness the search traffic that Amazon has built through their authority in the marketplace. That's all we're doing. Amazon ads, again, on platform, not talking about anything else, they're not really to educate customers. It's not really what we're looking to do. And you can run, try and run like, say, upper funnel, like education. There are certain ways you can do that. But really, most sellers these days are like, how do I get that return? How do I get profitability and still grow sales? And that's really by finding out where your ideal clients are searching. And then you're saying like, hey, how do I get, what are they using to search on the platform for my products? And then how do I get in front of them?
What exactly does it entail then, right? I had a conversation with one of my partners, Nick Nichols, who talked about that he read somewhere that they did a study based off the search engines of Google and Amazon, like
Mhm.
specifically those two. And when it came to literally anything and everything under the sun, Google's search engine was obviously much better. But when it came to shopping, Amazon was above and beyond Google could ever reach.
Yeah.
And it was like, especially when it came to like targeted key terms and like, exactly what you're trying to search for. If you did it
Mhm.
on Google versus Amazon, you're going to actually find what you're looking for, and your chances are you're going to be happier with the options available versus those on Google. So when it comes to ads, are you like bidding, I guess, bidding on keywords? And one, what does that even mean to bid on
Yeah.
keywords? And also, like, outside of that, people may not necessarily be on Amazon, right? Or people may not necessarily be, or let's just say they are on Amazon, they may not know what they're really looking for. They're just, shopaholics. And then all of a sudden, they see a bunch of different stuff that's out there. Is that also a part of, ads? If you can give a little more detail, because I need to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. So at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're showing up on either a search page or a product page, primarily. There's other pages you can show up, like homepage, etc. Those are less frequently shopped. There's deals that you can run. There's a little bit outside the scope of advertising that goes into deals. So if we're strictly talking Amazon ads, I want to show up either on a search page or a product page. And like you said, bidding on keywords, that's essentially what you're doing. The nuances come in when you can choose, say, different targeting types. So, for example, auto campaigns, right? I can dump something into an auto campaign. Amazon's going to determine where that shows up, right? I can dump something into a broad match keyword. That's going to trigger a variety of search terms. And you can narrow down to only focusing on, say, exact match, which is I only want to show up here. It's the only spot I want to show up. Now, fun fact I've seen, and this is one of those nuances and things I've learned over the years, that actually if you go too far in any extreme, if you say, I want to control everything and leave nothing to Amazon, I'm going all exact, you actually will eventually struggle with market share because there's a lot of product pages, there's a lot of new placements popping up. So a very recent example of that is, how you have the frequently bought together section?
Yeah.
That used to be only influenced by shopper behavior. And there were some people who would go on and try and like get people to add to cart and like influence that. But really it was just, general shopper behavior. That's now a sponsored placement, actually. And that's
Interesting.
actually triggering through auto campaigns. So if you're only focused on this is where I specifically want to show up, then you actually miss out on a lot of that, sort of like shifting in traffic. Flip side, if you only focus on, say, products, so you're like, I'm going to let Amazon run everything for me, right? I'm going to do autos, I'm going to do broad, let them do their thing. One, you actually end up with pretty big inefficiencies there. Amazon doesn't always get it right. Now, I think they're working on their algorithm to like really hone in. And that's actually what we're seeing is a shift on Amazon saying, hey, I want to take more control over kind of where you're showing up because I want to
Right.
let this do. That was the way of Google actually is going more towards that. Like, hey, we want to control this, which I think is some ways good and bad. And I'm really interested to see how that develops. But what we found is that you really need that two-part approach. You need a broader strategy that allows Amazon to push you out into the platform. A lot of people treat these as say like, oh, these are my quote discovery or research. And that's all they're ever good for is research. So then I can refine further and say like more specific targeting. We found that's actually not the case. They actually, providing you know how to control them, you can actually oftentimes achieve much lower cost traffic by allowing Amazon to do their own thing, but then putting restrictions on, hey, I'm not going to spend that much on what you're targeting. Let me be more conservative here. Let me be more aggressive with the things that I know work. So there's definitely that dynamic, and you want to make sure you're doing it intentionally. What we found is that only because they do a a heck ton of audits, right? Every single brand that I've audited that has been only specific, only exact match, they come to me and they're like, I can't figure out, like, my sales just aren't what they want, and I can't get the traffic that I'm looking to get, and like I can't hit that sales growth. And we look at them and go, oh, okay, so you're only focused on this specific subsection of market, and you're missing all of this other potential traffic. Versus anyone who's saying, hey, I'm doing all these low cost traffic because I really want to hit, target ROAS or ACoS, however you view it.
Right.
But you're missing those specific aggressive plays, because there is a dynamic in Amazon advertising, which is very unique to this advertising platform, is that you can actually influence organic ranking with your Amazon ad efforts. To my knowledge, I don't know if there's not even Walmart. I mean, there's some interesting dynamics there, but there is additional benefits outside of just whatever sort of ad ROAS, ACoS profitability you get. There is the ability to, say, grow overall sales through doing Amazon advertising. But again, you kind of need these two dynamics at play. And what we found is, again, because we've done audits where everyone's going in like one extreme or the other, we've seen that as a commonality. And anytime you go extreme in one direction and sort of cut off that other strategy, you end up really struggling to grow sales.
So you brought up like an interesting terminology, right? Organic sales,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which I'm assuming is based off of, and please correct me if I'm wrong, based off of people are just buying your product and you did not push it. Like it's just, okay, great. I am smart.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, sales, right? Like probably organic sales is probably the best way to, for products to get out there, because you're not spending extra on ads and stuff. At what point should people be using ads? Or more specifically, either within the company they are dealing with the ads and or using an ad agency, an Amazon ad agency to push these products. Because I'm assuming ads can become really expensive, as they are in the real world. I'm having issues with that at this point. And now when it comes, when you're thinking about your overall profitability, right? Amazon is going to take whatever they're going to take, but then they're going to take more also if you're running ads. So when should people be looking to do that? And also, should they be doing that with all of their products, some of their products? Are there goals that they should be trying to hold? I mean, I can keep asking the question.
Yeah. No, you set me up well. Okay, let's see. I'll try and answer, then you let me know if I missed something. So the first question on should they be running ads? Unfortunately, 99.9% of the time, the answer is always run ads, and you're probably never going to get away from that. That's just the name of the game on the platform. So really, to say when you launch a product, right? We talked about the influence on organic ranking. The algorithm will use some information to detect what your product is, right? They look at your backend keywords, they look at your listing, they say, where do we feel this product fits in the market? You will get some limited visibility just from that, but it's very limited. And you talked about the Amazon algorithm being sort of the best when it comes to, say, purchasing intent or making sure they're serving up, products that people actually want to buy. That's intentional, right? If you look at it just from like what Amazon says their focus is and what they've continued to focus on, right? Best selection, best price, fast shipping, right? They're like, customers are never going to not want this. And so the way that the algorithm works, which actually it'll be very interesting to see how AI might shift this or add to it in the future. So that's definitely something we're keeping an eye on. But it's really what are the metrics? How can we understand this product? How can we show it to an audience? And then how can we see or gauge shopper interactions with this product, positive or negative? So are they clicking into the listings when they see it in the search grid? Are they interested in it? Do they shop around? Do they add it to their cart? Do they purchase it? There's a lot of other metrics that go into that. But you can kind of wrap that as sort of like primary, really. And so if you think about it, you launch a new product, Amazon's like, all right, I kind of understand you a little bit. Maybe I'll show it to like 1 or 2 people. If those 1 or 2 people, like, you don't have reviews in the beginning. Maybe you started it at a higher price point and you realize, oh crap, nobody's buying at this high price point. So now I got to go lower the price, right? Maybe the main image isn't exactly what you wanted it in the beginning. And so you have to go through and you got to optimize that. But there is a learning curve when it comes to launching products. And even the best don't always get it 100% right. And so, well, if those first couple interactions, you don't hit like a really good momentum, why is Amazon going to take a product that they know absolutely crushes it, that shoppers love, that they are clamoring for, that they're buying, that Amazon's making money off of, to put your new product that like may or may not work and they're not really sure of it? Is that within their best interest? Not really. So you can kind of game the system in a way. Ads are a way to game the system. You talked about it from a high level, put it in front of shoppers, right? So we're saying, okay, from our understanding, looking at the search demographic, knowing we're not creating demand, we're simply harnessing it. Where is that demand? Where do we feel like that demand is for our products? How can we connect those things? How can we build up those ads? So instead of relying on hopefully Amazon to show us, we can force Amazon's hand. Of course, we pay for that privilege, which is, goes back to, yeah, in an ideal world, I'm not delusional. If you could sell products without running advertising, I would not have a company. Like, nobody actually is like thrilled about having to pay for ads, right? But because there is benefit, and I don't really see, first, it's not in Amazon's best interest. They're not hurting themselves by allowing Amazon advertising to help rank products. So I don't see them ever taking that away. And then also they're making really great profits on their charging people for ads. So there are things that are within their best interest to sort of keep this flywheel spinning. So I don't really see that going away. And I see them trying to also sort of segue that in with, sort of their AI as they look to sort of create a better consumer experience. I don't think they're going to want to give up, I think they want to have their cake and eat it too as well. But so advertising is just, a way to push ourselves in front of shoppers. And the way that sort of, that positive flywheel works is, so instead of Amazon pushing you into the algorithm, you're pushing yourself into the algorithm. Again, how much control over where you're placing yourself depends on your targeting and how you build it out. But you get in front of that shopper with the ad. Again, you still need the positive interactions. You still need somebody to click on it. You still need somebody to add it to their cart. You still need somebody to purchase it. So if you run really crappy ads, you're not going to get that benefit of ranking. But providing you've done your targeting well, you can like force Amazon's hand to show you. And then that positive shopper interaction leads to Amazon saying, oh, okay, so when this product is shown here, people like it. Great. Let's do that, so you can push it more with advertising. Great. Let's do more of that. And so you can sort of spin that positive flywheel, force Amazon's hand for that visibility. But then again, providing you have that positive feedback, that's how you get pushed up. And then if you're pushed up in the search grids, which like I mentioned, like we call it like our, organic market share, organic placements, organic search page rank. It's basically saying like, where am I showing up that's not an advertising spot? So if you show up and then all of a sudden you're shown up higher, well, then all of those clicks and positive interactions that are happening, you no longer have to pay for because you've gained that organic visibility. Again, most likely in the beginning from leveraging ads. And then the question then becomes, okay, so now that I have this organic visibility, how do I get profitable with the ads, right? And so oftentimes it can be, say, pulling back on the advertising, meaning, okay, so I leverage ads to get here. Can just this organic placement, that visibility, all of the positive interactions I get from showing up here, is that enough to sustain that ranking on its own? Because what we're actually doing is we're fighting against everybody else in the market, right? So I told you about the top guy that like everybody purchases and it's amazing. Well, if he's getting sales through his organic and he's getting sales through his advertising placement, those two things are bringing in traffic. If we take away the advertising interactions, he still can have some really good interactions with his organic spot. But like the question is that enough to sustain that velocity? Because we're kind of vying in this market. So like, as long as I can push out, as long as I can get more positive interactions, I can I can show that consumers really appreciate my product more than my competitor, and I can sustain that over a period of time. And that's how I can push up in the ranking. So if I take away the advertising piece, the question is, can I sustain that or can I not? And unfortunately, there's not a really black and white answer to that. It's a test it and see. And pro tip here, test that incrementally. Don't like shut it off and then turn it back on. Like lower the volume bit by bit, see what happens. That's the best way to go about that. I'm not sure if that fully answered your question, but hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, no, that definitely did. But it just makes me feel that Amazon is just a gotcha game. Do you know what a gotcha game is?
Yes.
Yeah. For those who don't know, a gotcha game is basically a game that purports to be free, but at the end of the day, you still have to pay. In order to improve yourself, you have to pay for things.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I feel Amazon is.
The fact of the matter is they've built the audience. They have the audience, they have the search traffic, and we're paying for the privilege to leverage that. I mean, there's more that goes into it, right? With the FBA program, you no longer have to have warehousing. You don't have to worry about the ship. I mean, don't get me wrong. Seller support, ship times, lead times, inventory, like it's not as smooth as me just rattling that off is good. So it's not that this selling on Amazon does not come with its quirks, its frustrations. You are at the end of the day dependent on a platform, but the fact still remains the amount of traffic. And also because they're taking care of your shipping, because they're taking care of fulfillment, because they're taking care of your warehousing, because they're taking care of, in a lot of ways like taxes and all the interactions and transaction fees and like all that crazy stuff, you would be not very surprised because you're in it, but the size of the business that you can build with leveraging the platform that Amazon has built relative to the team that you need to be able to run that is insane, to be honest. Not that you can't run a lean business outside of that, but it's very possible to get to 7-8 figures with like a handful size team leveraging Amazon, where if you had, you had to deal with warehousing, you had to deal with shipping, you had to deal with all of the other things. Now, a lot of those sellers are leveraging things like software agencies, other things. So it's not like they don't have outside help when you get to that level. And to be honest, at some point as a business owner, you learn I can't do everything myself. And you have to, leveling up is a lot about learning to let go and trust somebody to help you. But double-edged sword, pros and cons.
Yeah, I hear you. I would love to sell something for $1 million, but
Yeah.
I don't want to. Sorry, Amazon. Let me ask you this now. When it comes to maybe not most people, because I don't want to generalize, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of sellers have a lot of inventory. And sorry, let me rephrase, not inventory. They have a lot of different products. They have very complex product catalogs, and it's all over. You could have people that are in a certain category, or they're selling one type of thing, or they're like, I'm gonna put my hands into everything. And they're gonna go da 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 da, and you're like, why are you selling this and that and whatever, But anyway, like let's say you're a clothing store, right? And you're selling pretty much only on Amazon, right? And it's your private label, it's your own company, right? But we'll go with women's clothing, and it's options galore, and so many different types of stuff as well, right? Of different items, that you could be selling on the clothing store. How should a company go through, their product catalog and saying, okay, like, here's what strategy, basically what ad strategies should they be going through for complex product catalogs?
It's a really good question. And the one thing that we've found is that ad strategy should be tailored to the individual product. And I realize it's me saying that somebody's going to hear that and think of their product catalog. What the heck, how, right?
Yeah.
Because the thing that we've found is there is there is always going to be best practices, right? You're always going to have that playbook that you're like, you know, if everything was optimal, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And then, you know, this must apply to every single product, right? So you're going to look at that entire catalog. And to be honest, that checklist feels good, right? You're going to be like, okay, so I need a sponsored product exact match. I need my broad match. Elizabeth said I need my autos. I need this, like check, 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 check across the board. I'm going to work my way down that list, right? I'm going to launch all of these campaigns for every single product, and I'm just going to checkbox it. You were talking about expenses and being careful to like not go out of business because of your ad spend. That is a recipe to go out of business because you want to blow up your ad spend. And so this goes back to product launches as well. Oh my gosh, this is something that drives me crazy. I've talked to so many new sellers and they're like, okay, I need a product launch strategy, right? Go on YouTube. Somebody told me to do this checkbox. I need these 100 keywords. I'm going to put it in this, my strategy. And you feel good about it, right? You're like, I did the thing. I checked the box. It's there.
Right.
And then they go into their ad account the next day and they're like, I just spent $2,000 in one day. That's entirely possible. Depends on your category. It's entirely possible. And they're like, somebody told me I should like never cap my budgets. I'm just gonna keep budgets on 100% all the time and only advertise any bids and like checkbox it. And then you go in and you look at it and you're like, what the heck? My ad spend is through the roof. Performance is not what I want it to be. I'm not gonna have the cash flow to do reorders in 3 months if I keep this up. So they go and pause half of it and they're left feeling like a failure, like they didn't do something right. And they're like, what? Like I followed the system. And so the thing that we found is it's not necessarily you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't throw out best practices, but then you look at how does these best practices apply in this scenario? And the things that we found, the two main things that help us sort of filter through those best practices are goals and budget, or not. So really it's as a business, taking a good hard look about what does my cash flow look like? What does my budget look like? Especially in the beginning of launch. A $50 a day budget versus $1,000 a day budget. You think that should have a different ad strategy? Like, yes, right? You're going to do a lot more with $1,000 a day than you're going to be able to do with $50 a day. And it's not that either of them is wrong. If the guy who's only able to spend 50, somebody told him, hey, if you don't spend 1,000, they're looking at that $1,000 a day going, I'm not going to have money to like sustain my business. If this doesn't work in 1 month, I'm out. My cash flow is done. Like, don't run something that's going to cost you $1,000 a day versus the guy who's got like $1,000. If you have the cash flow to hit that accelerated sales growth sooner rather than later, do it by all means. So it's really looking at it through that lens, and then you basically take that lens and then you break it down on a per product level. Because again, the products that's only driving 1% of your total sales, do you need to spend thousands of dollars on that product? Probably not. It could be a market trend thing. It could be maybe you don't quite have product market fit on that one. Maybe you need to do no more work to that product to get the conversion rates up to, so as you run the traffic, that positive flywheel spins. There's all kinds of reasons. And there are strategies, low cost test strategies out there. So that's typically what we recommend is like, hey, take a look at your account, see what are my cash cows? How can I make sure that those ad strategies are dialed in? Make sure I'm focusing on these. Make sure that they don't lose market share. If I've only been doing exact match, hey, let's add in these lower cost ad strategies. Let's pump traffic to that so I can maintain that. And then you look at your other products. Okay, so maybe these are my 3, 4, 5 products in terms of sales. Can we push those up? Okay, so product 4 works. Product 5, that was a little bit of a wash. I don't really like going that lean on the profits on that product. Okay, great. Like let's pull back. And then everything else that I'm like, every seller with a large catalog you talk to has these products. They're like, I have these products. I launched them like 6 months ago. Or 2 years ago. Like they haven't really been given a fair shake. I don't feel like I ran a good product launch strategy on them. But at the same time, they're not really selling. So I feel like I'm left between this rock and a hard place. Like I want to put ads. Like, I want to see if these products work because I really feel like I have like the products already up there. I already have the listings. I already have the inventory. Like, I want to push these, but at the same time, so I'm like, I don't really want to put a lot of ad spend to it because, I don't want to completely lose out on my margins. But at the same time, like, I don't want to kill them because I don't feel like I have enough data to know it. So they're like, they take a look at the catalog, they look at that bottom percent, and they're like, every single, like, 6 months or whatever, they're like, I really should do something with this. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Next 6 months, right? Same thing. I feel like I should. And so there are like, with those ones, you're like, hey, where can we just run some limited testing, right? Don't blow up the ad budget. Don't make the account go unprofitable. See if anything works. Go with what works. Maybe push that up into the third tier, right? This is my test. Let's run it. So that's what I mean when like treat every single product. You can bucket them in some level. And I think to make sense of it, you really have to. But it's looking at what is this product doing in terms of performance? How is it driving me in terms of revenue and profits, not just revenue, profits? And then where can I allocate my ad dollars in a way that's going to make sense for me to help grow the business and be sustainable long term?
Right. So when you sit down with a client, my hand just disappeared. That's so weird. When you sit down with a client, what are like the first steps that you take with them? Because I'm assuming there's a lot involved when it comes to ads, but
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you know, like somebody, let's say, could be having, one product. They could have hundreds of thousands of products, here, there, a bunch of different stuff. But there's a lot of different strategies that can be used depending
Yep.
on the category. So when you first sit down with the client, like, what do you first do with them?
Set goals by far.
Like
And
what?
there are some brands where we're like, hey, what do you want to grow? It's grow sales. Okay, cool. That's not defined. You want defined goals. And it's not necessarily like there's right or wrong. So sometimes you have to, and I myself as a business owner, like, oh, what do you want to do? I just want to see how much I can grow. Right. Okay. So like grow infinity, double, triple, or are we talking like a 10%? Right. So it's really, it's just trying to talk through that. So the two goals that we find are the most helpful are a sales or revenue goal. Could be units moved, it could be a percentage, it could be a dollar value. It doesn't really matter, just some way to define it. And then profitability, which for us in the advertising sphere works more out to like a total ACoS number. And yes, we want to look at ACoS, but there is a dynamic in where you can increase ACoS and decrease total ACoS, which actually makes the account more sustainable as a whole. So we focus a little bit more on total ACoS, although we do want an ACoS goal as well. And so so that gives you the goal to shoot for and your constraint, which is your total ACoS, which in a lot of ways backtracks into your ad budget. And so you go, okay, I want to hit a 2x growth on this brand, but I want to stay within a 12% total ACoS. Okay, great. We know what we're able to spend as a percentage. As the revenue grows, so grows the budget because it's a percentage model. So that's why it's a little bit more dynamic to look at a total ACoS goal versus a set ad budget. Although there are some brands that need to work within a defined budget, and we can do that as well. But yeah, so it's just saying like, okay, what is possible given this ad budget? And then it's our job as the agency to say, okay, this is what you wanted. Hey, we're seeing as we push this ad budget, maybe growth isn't ramping as much as we would want, or things are slightly more expensive, or the products don't convert as much as we want. Can we go up to a 12.5 or 13? We feel like we could hit a more accelerated growth if you were able to give a little bit more in the budget. Sure, not yes or no. Oh, no, I don't think so because of XYZ. Not a problem. Cool. We'll just set expectations there. Yeah, we can go up. Okay, cool. We feel like we can, there's more at play here, right? And so that really, what I find is that goals backtrack. You really want to work backwards. When you're forecasting anything, it's so much easier to work backwards than it is to like go off into infinity because nothing is really infinite, because there's always going to be a market cap, a search trend gap, or, how much the cost per click is increasing. So now we can afford less clicks. Like there's always some dynamic to manage. And yeah, you're right. The nuts and bolts of like how you piece that together on the back end of the ad strategy, there's almost infinite complexity to it. which I mean, I know it's a plug for using an agency, but like in some ways it's a lot easier to be like, okay, you guys worry about that stuff. I'll just give you goals and budgets and like we'll figure out how to knock this out together. That's the dynamic we prefer to run with. But really, if you had to do it for yourself, I would say, what kind of growth am I looking for? What are my constraints in terms of budget? And then how, now that I've defined what my budget is, I can then backtrack that into strategy and say, okay, I can afford this. I can afford this. This is working. I have budget for it. This is not working. I can take that budget and reallocate it. And then it's just constantly really good ad management is spend control at the end of the day.
Gotcha. How much hand holding and I guess teaching are you doing for sellers? I feel like sellers sometimes come in here and don't really know anything. Mind you, that's
Yeah.
just coming from a reimbursement standpoint because literally no one cares about them, even though they're very vital. But I also feel that it is probable that a lot of sellers come in, they hear the big talk, they see everything, how wonderful it could be on Amazon. Somehow they make it to $2 million in revenue, and I don't understand how. And then they're like, you know what? We got to actually learn a few things. So, how
Yeah.
much hand holding and teaching do you do?
Quite a bit. To be honest, if you have an agency, communication is about 50% of the job. Um, maybe even more if I'm being honest. And we're constantly looking for ways to increase our level, speed, and just efficiency with communication. Because I think that's really important piece. And so with that is always going to come some teaching. The best relationships and also the ones where we've been able to get the best results are the ones where the clients are very proactive with goals, what they want to look happen, and then lean on us for our expertise. Like I just sent off a message to a client today. We're working with, say, total ACoS goals, and then we have a defined budget, and that budget actually going to put us well below the total ACoS goals. But we're working to hit the budget by the end of June, which may lead us to restrict ad spend, which could potentially influence a decrease in the total sales by the end of June. Maybe we can float it, but in a month or two, it might hurt us. And so he was really proactive, like, hey, we're kind of wondering what this looks like and how we're going about it. I'm like, hey, look, if this is the goal, how we're going about it is 100% correct. But I realize that this may have some some consequences that you don't really want to give on. So here's 3 options, right? Given what we're seeing, we can either do X, we can do Y, we can do Z. Here's the potential we see downfall in, pros and cons of each strategy. Here's kind of what we would recommend. Although this is a business decision because it involves ad budgets. So we're going to defer this to you, but here's our context and what we see. And it's at a high level. So, I mean, you will get the clients where it's like, hey, we want to, this keyword and that keyword, and we're going down into ad strategy. And what we found is that when that becomes a dynamic, not because we don't want to teach it, but if something doesn't work, but the strategy has been dictated by client, the team doesn't feel as empowered to be able to be like, hey, that's not working. Let me turn it off. It's like, well, the client requested that. So therefore we got to go send the email. We got to have the powwow. Then we got to change it. It's like, we can't cut off that wasted ad spend as quickly as we need to because we're not as in charge of strategy. So what we found is that when everyone's playing to their strengths, clients like, this is where I want to go. We're like, all right, let's build it. And then we're like, hey, here's some roadblocks. Here's some things we're seeing, lay it out, give you a couple options. All right, option 2, great, let's roll. That tends to be the brands that can move the quickest and can grow the fastest.
So that leads me to my next question, which is who are your favorite types of clients, right? You have clients who know their goals. You have clients who don't. You have clients who are selling $60,000 a year to selling $300 million a year. You have people who are selling these types of products and that type of products, and they're within this category, and they've been doing it for 2 years to 16 years, right? Who are your favorite types of clients to work with?
Honestly, the clients who clearly define their goals and understand realistic expectations by far. And I would say a piece of that is they already have some a good solid product market fit. And I think that's important for any business, right? Like you have a product that people actually want to buy. Those are the hardest ones. It's where you're like, okay, so this might be a good product, but like nobody really wants to purchase it, right? That makes it hard as an ad manager. I can run the traffic, but it's not going to convert. So nobody's going to be happy with that situation. And so, I mean, like we have one client we've been working with for years now, and we were able to grow that brand. I mean, it was a highly seasonal brand, and we've been able to develop some really amazing ad strategies out of that interaction, because he was like, hey, this is how much units I want to move. I have X amount of budget to do it. I almost don't care about these KPIs. These are the KPIs I'm looking for. Do your thing. And like, I mean, that brand, we grew from 0 to 300,000 in the span of like 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
I mean, like he's my ad manager who works in the account, she's amazing. And she's been the one to develop a lot of those ad strategies. I'm no longer the smartest one on the team, as much as that may personally pain me to say. But she's like, hey, his conservative is somebody else's aggressive. So don't get me wrong, like he threw ad budget at it. And so, I mean, that's the other part of the equation. But like someone like that, you're like, okay, this is exactly what I want. The through our agency or other agencies out there, what we've found is that certainty breeds speed. So if you're certain as to what needs to happen, 100% I can do it. Where people get stuck, and this is where brand owners get stuck as well when they're managing their own advertising accounts. They're like, I know what needs to happen, but like, I don't know what that strategy looks like. I've tried lowering ad spend, and you're just stuck in this like just confusion and uncertainty, which sort of creates a roadblock in moving forward. Where that's why goals are so important, because if we're like, okay, I know client prioritizes profitability above all else, right? I ran this ad test, although it increased ad, total sales slightly. I know his priorities, I know his KPIs, so I can be very confident in readjusting that test because I know what the client prioritizes, I know what our KPIs are, I know what the ultimate goal is. Where, that may be different for someone else. Like, hey, I know the client is prioritizing growth. There's a specific reason, because if we accelerate sales, well, then he's going to be able to make larger reorders. And with larger reorders, his product prices, like there are certain reasons why going aggressively after sales can actually benefit margins in the long run if you know the client and what they're trying to achieve. And so you can be more confident in, okay, so I know this, this KPI may have gone, worse slightly, but given that this is the overarching goal, okay, we can be confident in moving fast. Where you get stuck is going, I feel like I should be doing this. And if left to my own devices, I would do this. But I don't feel confident in doing that because I don't know if they're going to be pleased with that. I'm a little bit unsure. So you like wait a week or two to do an optimization, or you have to reach out, and it's just like it takes more time, and that time is time spent not getting the results. And so favorite clients is like, hey, this is what we want to do. You see roadblocks, tell us. I see roadblocks, I tell you, and then we're off to the races.
Are there certain times of the year that you are like insanely busy? Because Amazon has Prime Day coming up.
Yes.
There's also the holiday season. So like, is it when like are you most busy like around the times that people are like probably going to be spending the most amount of money? Or is that more like you're actually doing that like 2 or 3 months prior to those busy seasons, and then you have time for those holiday
Yeah.
good time seasons?
So Black Friday is the thing. I am blessed. So a lot of my team is overseas and they don't celebrate Thanksgiving. So that makes me feel a little bit better. So I'm not like, you guys have to work on a holiday. I mean, they're amazing. We work weekends when we need to. We work holidays when we need to. Yeah. So with those holiday seasons, there is a very specific playbook that you run 2 to 3 weeks to a month prior to that. And that's really getting the ads in a position to make sure you're not wasting money when that traffic hits. And then there is a very specific playbook that you run during the days of, and then afterwards to sort of like correct down for that. Um, I would say the most time intensive does happen 2 to 3 weeks before. However, what I would say, the frequency in which you need to check things accelerates those specific days of peak traffic. So like the pre-work is probably it's there's a lot more of it, it's more intense, but that can be done in bits and pieces and over time, which is why we started a little bit earlier to be able to run those tests. And then, but days of, yes, it is time intensive, but the amount of actions and what you're doing, you've kind of already prepped for it. And then, it's just kind of executing it and checking it. So yeah, we're busy, I guess. No, a very long way to say, yeah, we're busy.
So if you give me the address of everyone, I'll make them a turducken. Okay.
There you go. That's
Here
amazing. Never had one of those. I might have to try it.
Uh, I did it a few years. Did it a few years ago. I don't remember how long ago it was. I did it a few years ago. And but I didn't make the like a traditional turducken. What I did instead, I actually made a turguskin. I made 3 different stuffings and layered.
Oh,
My
that
wife
sounds
was like, "I am not going to eat this. It looks so gross." And then she tasted. She's like, "As long as I don't look at it, I can
That's
eat it."
funny. I left out. I married into a family where I think shortly after we were married, someone was like, "Do you guys really like turkey?" And they were like, "Nah." So they do a prime rib every year. So I'm like, I'll take that.
No, I can't stand turkey. I mean, it's not that I can't stand it. I'm not a big fan of it unless it's like
Yeah.
covered in a lot of sauce. So like
Yeah.
covered with other things. But yeah, I totally hear you. I should go with prime rib this year. That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
Speaking of family, right? I was reading your bio and you got 6 children
I
and you're
do.
running an ad agency, an Amazon ad agency, mind you, which is
Yeah.
worse and more intensive, in my opinion, than an actual ad agency. So, and that's from zero experience. So I apologize to anybody in the actual ad world. How are you doing this?
By doing nothing else. So I have constantly stripped things down. Actually, that's the one thing I have enjoyed as I've gotten older is realizing that other people's should do's in a lot of ways are unhelpful. And it's really hard to get out of it because I came from being like an intense people pleaser. So it's been like a lifelong journey and I feel like I'm still on it. But like, does this actually serve me? Is this actually something I want to do? Or is this somebody just said, oh, this is what everybody should do? And you should feel like, so like there's this gilling over the guilt of like the guilt complex is like, it's intense. But if you can push past that, there's a brave new world on the other side. And so for us, it's been my life consists of family and work, friends and things and other pieces that fit when and if I want them to. But that's been really, really good. So it's like, how do you do it all? I don't. I just figure out what things are important to me and I just kind of fit everything else around it. And like I left out, I mean, I like spontaneous going somewhere doing something, but I'm not a huge like travel person or I'm not a huge, I'm very much a homebody. I stick around here. I like it. I'm a slow paced, like the quiet life, like the simplicity. I don't mind the repetitiveness. And again, that works for me. I think there's some people who would see it and be like, that drives me crazy. Don't you get out more? Like, what do you guys? So I think again, it's figuring out what it is that makes you happy and makes you enjoy life, and then just making sure you're optimizing for that. And that can come in whatever form and fashion it does. And again, you gotta hone in on it, which is a little bit difficult, but it's good.
No, I mean that's great. Look, I gave up playing football just when my kid was born because
Yeah.
I'm gonna go injure myself, and not be able to actually help and take care of things. But
Yeah.
something I've noticed with Amazon, because I started working in an Amazon company, Better Refunds, January 1st, 2024. Okay.
Mhm.
And this is after a 14-month gap of rejections, after having a job in a high-tech company as a project manager for like 6 years, and then prior to
Mhm.
that working at a like the biggest banks of the world, for like 5 to 8 years. It
Wow.
depends if you like count. Yeah. And like, I have found that I have spent more of my energy and time working on our stuff, because Amazon is just so complex. Now, mind you, we just do reimbursements. Okay, like
Yeah.
there's nothing simpler than that. But like, because I am biz dev, my whole role is trying to grow the business, right? In various ways, and getting our brand awareness and name out there, whatever. So there's a lot more work that I'm doing now than like I have in any other job. I'm assuming with ads, it's a never ending game. And especially if you have lots of clients, you could easily work a 14, 18-hour day. How are
Yeah.
you managing your life so that don't, burn out? And you get to do the things that
Yeah.
you want to do. Like, if you want to play with the kids, you can play with the kids. If you want to throw them, somewhere else, and then, do your own thing, fine. But, there is such thing as a work-life balance. And especially, I would love you to answer this, especially since you are a mom to 6 kids. It's a lot of
Yeah.
responsibility.
Uh, it's a good question. So you're right. There's a lot of changes in Amazon advertising. There's a lot of things that are shifting and adjusting over time that you have to adjust for. Um, I would say a couple of things. One, I'm not the only one doing it anymore. I have a team behind me. I have an amazing team behind me. I am extremely proud of. I don't know how we stumbled into building a good culture, because I feel like I didn't know what I was doing. I still feel like I half don't know what I'm doing. But we have created an insane culture of personal accountability meets camaraderie meets high level of standard for ourselves. And I feel like we just feel like we're at the top of our game, and yet somehow we keep raising the bar, which is amazing. And to see like the team growth and how everybody's stepping up to the plate and how much they care about their account, like it's phenomenal. um and I think the thing I learned as a business owner is it's just continuously relinquishing control to other people, and then learning to trust them to execute on it. Um, and that's something I'm like getting better at. So for example, like I am very much the visionary of the company. I'm that everything has to be the best. I have 20 different ideas at the same time, and I'm like, oh, this is how this fits. And that's done really good for helping the team and coach the team, and like here's the possibilities, and gathering information and bringing it back to them, and camaraderie, and oh, this person knows this, and making sure that's all connected. um However, that created immense amount of complexity and frustration for the team, because they're like, I don't know where anything is. Everything goes through Elizabeth. What the heck is this? Right. And so I brought in a head of client communications and front operations person. And his strength is simplicity. So he simplified our madness. And that was something that I had to relinquish control, right? I had to take a step back. I had to allow somebody else to do their thing. And team satisfaction, how we work together. Oh my God, I don't even know how we worked before this. I mean, like, it's been amazing. And so it's continuously like finding the right people, realizing the parts that you're maybe not as good at, or something that you can't keep to yourself anymore, and then trying to help that person along. And it's probably a lifelong battle. And then the other thing with growth, I'm not sure if this is exactly answering the question, but the longer I'm in business, the longer I realize as the leader, it's all my fault. And that completely sucks. Um, but in all honesty, it's very freeing that means is long as I'm working on self-development and identifying roadblocks within myself of things that I'm not doing well, as fast as I can figure out those things, the faster the company can grow. And so it's like, I said, there's nothing like entrepreneurship for like forced personal growth. It's painful sometimes, but I think we're all better for it at the end of the day.
That's amazing. To be honest, like I'm surprised you don't sell this as a service, like seriously, you word it so well. And there's a reason why all of these Amazon agencies exist.
Mhm.
Not just because Amazon does whatever Amazon decides to do, but because you can't do it by yourself, right? There's a reason why, people hire other people because you have a vision, but you can't necessarily do it by yourself, right? You have to
Yep.
get other people involved, right? That's why I hired somebody to do my website because I suck at design.
Yeah.
I no joke today. I made one of those paper snowflakes for my kid and for my 5-year-old, and he says to me, you know, it's okay. Mommy makes it better. Thanks, man. But that's why you have people out there, right, to help you. And like, I don't know, you should really consider selling these
Yeah.
services, to tell people you
Yeah,
do these.
maybe someday I'll have enough to say on the matter. I feel like I'm on the cusp of learning. So
Well, my favorite rabbi used to say that the quickest way to learn is by teaching.
yeah, true.
Interesting.
Very true.
What is one question I did not ask that you wish I asked, and how would you answer that question?
Oh, goodness. Put me on the spot.
That's what I do.
Question you didn't ask. Can I cop out and give a self plug?
Sure. Of course.
Can I cop off and say how to get a hold of us? Do that whole spiel?
Yeah,
Is that a
please.
jerk move?
No, it's a great move. Are you kidding me? The answer to the question, by the way, was the question is, how do you contact me?
Yeah, there you go. You like what I said? And you're like, how the heck do I get that? Yes, please. I got to take it off my plate. I no longer can own this. Then I would get a hold of us. Best place is going to be the website, Junglr, JUNGLR.com. You'll still get in touch with me. So, hey, talk with me personally. We'll see what we can do. Again, we'll set goals, talk about goals. What's your struggles? What do you need? And then we'll build a roadmap to get you there.
Amazing. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being on this call. And from one redhead to another, have a great day.
Thanks.